All right, you are live again.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So the first part of this meeting is what's called a workshop. The second part of this meeting will be the formal council meeting. We do that in the summer as a way of shortening the number of meetings by putting them together. We actually have 12 items on the workshop agenda, but the first 6 of them I'm going to handle on my own fairly quickly. And so for those who might want to make a public comment, you'll have to wait until the formal meeting begins, which will probably be around 8, maybe a little sooner, depending on how we can get this over with. All right? So let me start with the workshop. First, I got to do a roll call. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I see all 7 council members and the mayor. I see the city administrator and the city attorney. Did I miss anybody? I can say names. Would that help? Okay, let's call that roll call. All right, so I've got some swearing-ins to do, and to do that, I'm going to go to the podium and ask people to come up one at a time. All right, so hang on.
And Mayor, we're going to do Alyssa first.
Yep. Agreed.
She's on shift, so.
So the one I'm going to do first is the sergeant on duty. So Alyssa Rudin, will you come on up and we'll take care of you first? All right. So give me a raise a hand, right one, and then just repeat after me. So I, and state your name,
I, Alyssa Rudin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
Yeah, come on over here too. And the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of
the duties of
Police Sergeant,
Police Sergeant,
City of Beacon,
City of Beacon,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You sign there, I'll sign here.
Okay.
Any comments you care to make to the crowd before you go back in the meeting?
I'm sorry, this is so short, but thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right. You going to stick for the others for until, or unless you're called, you can stay here in the courtroom, right? All right. Unless the chief tells you otherwise. You got 2 of them that could talk to you now. All right. So let's go next. Are we going to do Figlia next?
Yes.
Is that right? All right. Tom? I see your mother here. I see, what is it, an aunt as well?
Yes, they're twins.
Yeah? All right.
So you're not seeing double.
So let's do the routine. Why don't you repeat after me? I, and state your name,
I, Thomas Figley,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of Police Chief
the duties of Police Chief
of the City of Beacon,
of the City of Beacon,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Can you sign there?
All right.
All right. All right. Thank you all. Any remarks? It won't be the last time you're up
I've been
here.
making a lot of remarks lately, but thank you guys very much. Appreciate it.
Michael Confield's next. How are you doing? Good to see you. All right, so give me a right hand. I state your name.
I, Michael Confield,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United
I
States
will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York.
and that I will faithfully discharge
I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police lieutenant
the duties of police lieutenant
of the City of Beacon
of the City of Beacon
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
They check too, to make sure I did it right.
You'd make a lousy lieutenant.
What can I say? Any words, Lieutenant?
Just want to thank, Chief Frost, I want to thank him for the 41 years of service, promoted me to sergeant. Thank you very much, and I look forward to working with the new chief, Tom Figlia. And I want to thank everybody up here, and 9 years on midnights, I'm now on days, so if you have anything, you want to reach out and just say hi or any questions, please reach out to me, all right?
You'll need sunscreen if you're on days.
Oh, the sun's already hurt my eyes. Thank you very much.
So, Oscar? Yeah, come on up. How are you? All right. You ready for another one of these? Yeah. All right, raise a hand. I state your name.
I, Oscar Vargas,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of Police Lieutenant of the City of Beacon
of Police Lieutenant of the City of Beacon
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my abilities.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. And you have at least a few words.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm here if you guys need me.
Thank you. I don't know, is there anybody left?
Carl.
All right, Carl, come on up. How you doing? All right. One more. All right, it's over here. I state your name.
I, Carl Garofalo,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and the Constitution of the State of New York,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of Police Detective of the City of Beacon
of Police Detective of the City of Beacon
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
You too, the mic.
Again, just want to say thank you for the opportunity here, and just like Lieutenant Confield, I'm going to second him, say thank you to Chief Ross and Chief Figlia for the opportunity as well. Appreciate it.
All right. We're not quite done. Yeah, I know, there'd be some sighs. So, Chief Frost, you want to join me up here? Sam. I missed you. I missed the walkout, sorry. That was a mistake. All right. So, this evening I am honored to recognize the amazing tenure of Police Chief Sands Frost, who as of this past Friday, June 14th, has retired from the department after nearly 41 years of service to the community. Chief Frost started his career in 1983 as a police officer and rose through the ranks with increasing administrative and investigative responsibilities. He held supervisory positions for the past 32 years, including narcotics detective, patrol sergeant, lieutenant, detective sergeant, acting police chief, and then starting in January 2021, police chief. Chief Frost was also a reservist in the United States Marine Corps for 22 years, during which time he was deployed multiple times, including for Operation Desert Storm, and for which he earned many accolades. A native of Beacon, Sands has helped the Beacon Police Department develop strong relationships with community groups and residents. He was appointed to the position during a period of great challenge, and he provided steady leadership during the COVID pandemic and in the wake of the George Floyd murder. He leaves the department as a model for other communities surrounding the Hudson Valley region and beyond. Some key initiatives launched under Chief Frost's guidance include: started the Hope Not Handcuffs program, handcuffs, there you go, to aid those struggling with addiction. Integrated a behavioral health specialist from Mental Health America into the department. Reinitiated officers patrolling Main Street to build community relations. Promoted active participation with department and the Dutchess County Domestic Abuse Response Team. Promotes active participation with the department and the City of Beacon Drug Court and Domestic Violence Court. Has maintained police department involvement in community events and maintains the police department's training threshold, meeting all requirements set by New York State Accreditation, Division of Criminal Justice Services, and state and federal case law. Please join me in thanking Chief Frost for his amazing service to Beacon and in honoring him with a plaque and a flag. And let me give you both of those right now. So the first one is a service award from the City of Beacon. It's presented to Police Chief Sands Frost in honor and appreciation of more than 40 years of outstanding public service to the City of Beacon, July 11th, 1983 to June 14th, 2024. So hold on to that, right? Actually, let me put it here, all right? And then the second thing that is here is there was a flag by our Congressman Ryan that was flown over the Capitol that I'd like to present to you. So, yeah. All right, and with that, we just wish you the very, very best in what you do going forward. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, everyone. We got a busy agenda tonight. I won't keep this too long, but I really just want to end my career by saying thank you. I know last year I did a talk about why do you stay for 40 years, and I'm not going to get back all into that, but I just want to say thank you. This is a job you can't do by yourself. I want to start with my wife. Obviously, I didn't say yes to this job right away. We've had some conversations at home. But she's been great the whole time, late evening meetings, calls in the middle of the night, weekend events. She's had my back the entire time at home, and that's definitely made that a lot easier to do this. I want to thank the leadership here with Beacon, with the council, with the mayor, with Chris. Again, you can't do things on my own. Although the mayor was the most job interviews I've ever had for a position, but But no, thank you very much. Chris helped me out with the everyday administration and a lot of details involving everyday running of a police department. I learned a lot about city administration through you, and very smart guy. And the council, thank you. Executive sessions, we got to know each other a lot, and a lot of help with things like budget and capital plan and promotions and in hiring and things like that. And Mayor, you also involved with that. And Mayor's always, he always stays calm no matter what we had conversations about. And some things I always thought wasn't something to be so calm about. But I got give him the thanks for that. Nick, thank you very much for everything that you've done with your expertise over the years. I want to thank the other departments. A lot of things the police do isn't just us involved. It's the other departments that are involved. It's a team. Chris does a great job in making that, bringing that out. And the department heads are great to work with. Their employees are great to work with in getting things done. I'd like to thank the community. I've had a lot of support from the community. I grew up in Beacon, and I think that helps out a lot. You get to know a lot of people before you take this job on. But I've had a lot of support throughout, especially after I became police chief. A lot of people that I've known for a long time, some people I haven't known for a long time, very supportive, and that's a help. That's to the people that we protect and serve, and I'm glad they appreciate it. And then definitely not last, not least, but the officers I work with, both past and present. I learned a lot from people I worked with in the past, and we have a great group of officers that are working here now. As a police chief, it's nice knowing you coming in and you have employees that are trying to do the right thing every day when they go out there and getting the job done. They're very respectful to the people in the community. They have great interactions out there when things are good, and even when things aren't so good sometimes, they stay very professional in how they handle a situation. I want to thank them for that. And I know I'm going to miss somebody with these thank yous, but you can't do this job without all that support, and it just makes it so much easier. And just to put this back to what I thought was the most important part of the meeting, I'm leaving, riding off into the sunset, but I want to congratulate the Chief Figlia, Lieutenant Confield, Lieutenant Vargas, Sergeant Rudden, Detective Garofalo, the new leadership coming up. This is the biggest transition I've seen in this department in my 40 years, so they got their hands full with that transition. But I got full trust and faith that the people we're promoting are going to do a great job for you and keep the department going where it should be going. Keep it on a steady pace. So thank you.
Congratulations, we will miss you.
All right. And anyone, we'll take a minute as some of the people clear the room. Carrie? Hey, how are you, Lori?
We're just commenting on how relaxed you are.
Not on a fire drill?
Yeah, retired must be nice.
Trying to get a finance director through this.
Okay. Why don't we keep going?
She sit there, and I'll jump here if I need.
Okay, that takes care of the first 6 items on our agenda. Let's move on to the proposed 2025 to 29 capital program. That's why Susan's here. Chris, are you going to start, or is Susan going to start up?
Well, I'll start since I'm at the microphone, but can I have 2 seconds to set up?
Sure, of course. I need a minute too. All right.
So my computer's booting up, but I have printout, so we can start there. So, am I speaking into this okay? Everyone
Yeah.
can hear me? All right. All right.
I think you have to get like really
I could
close
be-
to it.
I can
Yeah.
be loud. I'm a mom. Sorry, we can't hear you back here. Really? Yeah. Okay, how's this? Better? All right.
There you go.
So, we met on May 28th to go over the five-year capital program. And in that, we laid out spending plans for 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, and 2029. Tonight, we're here to discuss how to fund the 2025 portion of that. So as we discussed on the 28th, there are generally three ways to fund the capital program. The first one being state aid and grants, the second one being fund balance, and the third one being debt. Debt is authorized, and we generally would do short-term debts until we can get the best interest rates and roll that into long-term debt unless we can pay it off early. So in your packet, you will see my proposed financing plan for 2025. So the total that we proposed for funding in 2025 is $8,456,070. Of that, $1,071,540 would be from general fund balance. $2,441,450 would be from general fund debt. $1,190,000 would be from water fund balance, and $1 million from water fund debt. $294,280 from sewer fund balance. $1,304,000 from sewer fund debt. $1,115,000 from state and federal aid, and $39,800 from other grant sources. So if we could, we would start discussing the state aid portion, and then I'll talk about fund balance, and then we'll talk about debt, if that's okay. Any questions so far?
You're doing great. Thank you.
All right. So each year we get an allocation in the CHIPS program, which is Consolidated Highway Improvement Program. So that's generally how we are milling and paving our streets each year. We produce a list of the streets we're going to mill and pave, and it has to be within the allocation of the CHIPS funding, and it basically that's how we're paying for all of the milling and paving of the streets each year. We also plan to use some of that money to do the milling and paving of Fishkill Avenue from Blackburn to Prospect. We are also planning on using some CDBG funds, which falls under federal aid, for the sidewalk improvements. We have some, actually we've already received part of the South Avenue Park grant, and there was an additional $30,000, so we applied that to this capital financing plan. And we just recently received a police grant where we plan to pay for the Main Street cameras out of. So that's a total of $1,115,000 in state and federal aid sources and $39,800 in grant sources. As we go forward, should other grant opportunities arise for any of these items, we obviously would pursue them. The second portion of funding the capital program is fund balance. So we are proposing to use $1,071,540 in general fund balance. That is in the general ballpark of what I like to apply to each year's capital plan. And generally, because that is the target of surpluses from prior years. I like to try to have about a $1 million surplus in the general fund for this specific purpose, to invest in ourselves, whether it's machinery and equipment or other general fund purposes. So this is out of a previous year surplus, which is fund balance. So water fund debt, we're proposing to use $1 million of fund balance. Same premise here. We have surpluses from previous years, so we can apply those to capital programs. And for sewer fund balance, we're proposing $294,280,000, and the rest would go towards sewer fund debt. Sewer fund has our smallest fund balance, so we don't want to use too much of that each year. So moving on to the debt pieces. Now this is just what would be authorized. We don't actually move forward with issuing any of the debt until we're ready to spend it. So for instance, if we weren't ready to buy the ladder truck until, I think there's a 52-month lead time on that, we would put the authorization now, order the truck, and then when it comes in, we would be paying for it. So that would be an actual expenditure in 2028, 2029. There's also various highway equipment that would be included in that general fund debt. It doesn't mean that we might issue the short-term debt on that, but I would attempt to pay that off before we rolled it into a long-term serial bond. So with general fund, we have 5 years to issue short-term debt. And as hopefully interest rates go down in the next 5 years, once we project the lowest interest rate possible, we would issue a long-term serial bond on these amounts. So, water fund, we are planning on doing the $1 million debt, and the sewer fund, the $294,280. So, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. The water fund debt is the $1 million, and the sewer fund debt is $1,304,000. Water and sewer, we have a longer time to issue short-term debt on that. We have 15 years to pay that off. Short-term debt comes due each year, and you pay down the principal and interest, and you could pay as much as you want on the principal. With a long-term debt and serial bonds, the principal and interest rates or amounts are set. So any surpluses, if we could, I would apply it towards paying down the principal before we go long-term. So, or one-time sale of assets, that can also get applied here. Right now is definitely not the best time to issue debt. I've put it off as long as I could. This, we have authorizations from previous years that work we've done in 2021, 2022, 2023, and up to now in 2024. We're going to, in a short time frame, issue the debt for that. Debt rates right now for our Moody's rating is about 3.7%. So that's what we're looking at with issuing a short-term ban. But that's not unheard of. Before the last couple of years, that was an average rate for issuing these. We've just, since 2015-16, we've been getting 2% on our short-term and long-term debt. It's been a great time to borrow. That being said, you had asked me what our debt service schedules were. So I brought that tonight if you would like to take a look.
Yeah.
Ben, could you bring that up? There's also, if you would like to pass those.
And then Susan, while Ben's doing that, maybe you'll get to this, but in terms of the debt that we're taking on and what is already on the load, do you see any impact to the overall debt rating for the city with the
Debt
new
rating,
issuance?
no. That
Okay.
we're always protective of that. In fact, before we even do the finance plan draft, we calculate that out. So after we applied 4.8 million to last year's capital plan of fund balance. With that being said, we're still at the 30% of fund balance reserves of appropriations.
Okay.
And that is the target that I like to be at. Moody's is very happy with that. We've been as high as 45%, 47% before. That's why we applied it to the capital plans.
Okay, thank you.
So the first schedule that we have up there is the general fund debt service schedule. So this is actually 2023's debt service.
Is it possible to zoom in so people
Yes.
can see that a little
Look
better?
at the yellow part, Ben. That's
You
2023.
can't zoom into PDFs on the screen share, as far as I know.
You
People
can't.
online will be able to see
You
it
can't
pretty
make it
clearly,
big.
though.
It's what's on your page on the
okay.
yellow. So, looking at the general fund, in 2023, our total debt service with principal and interest was 2.9 million. That's what we had been carrying each year. That was the level amount of debt service that we had thought was sustainable for the city. In 2024, we had one of our debt issuance drop off, meaning we paid it off. And that freed up $563,000 for the 2024 budget. So thankfully that we had that, because we did have a one-time surge of retirement costs last year. That covered that. Hopefully the market's doing a little better, interest rates are up, that our contribution to retirement won't be as large in 2025. So when we were planning on building the firehouse, we had decided that 2024 was the year, because 2025 was when another large piece of general fund debt service would come off. So as you can see from 2024, the total debt service drops from 2.3 to 1.591 million. So that is it drops off about $752,000. So when we issue the debt from the last couple of years, we'll probably put about 900,000 back on there. So, and it brings us back up to 2.5 million. And that covers the firehouse. Is there any questions on that? I know it's pretty deep into debt service. The next schedule is water. Water doesn't have a significant amount of debt. So it didn't vary much from 2023 to 2024. It does drop off in 2025. It drops off by about 165,000. And with all the work that we've been doing the last 3.5 years, all the dams, all that type of work, we'll probably put on about 400,000 back onto the schedule. Sewer fund, we've been doing a lot of work every year for the last 12 years. So we've been issuing debt with that, obviously paying some down with fund balance. Again, not a significant drop from 2023 to 2024, but 140,000 drops off from, 150 drops off from 2024 to 2025, and we'll put about 350 on with what we'll be issuing, bringing that us up to 1.58 million. I know it's pretty dry. If you'd like to digest any of that, if there's any questions, feel free to shoot an email and I can explain.
Well, just to clarify,
Sure.
so, I mean, we showed issuance years of 2014, 2016, 2018, 2021.
Yes.
So there was no issuance since 2021, but now we're going to have it for 2024, just
Yeah.
clarifying.
So even the 2021, it had the work from 2018 to then, but a lot of this things we were planning on in 2021, we hadn't spent any money on yet. So we try to spread that out. So if we, let's say we did short-term bond anticipation notes for the next couple of years, our next issuance, let's say, could be 2028. And that, depending on the period of probable usefulness of what we're funding, like for instance, the firehouse is a 25-year, we would spread the cost out over 25 years. That's how we come up with the principal and interest schedule for each fund.
And just a silly clarification question, but that in the third column at the top row there, that 2005, that's in parentheses?
Yes.
What is that?
That's a great question, actually. So all of our serial bonds are callable, which means that after 10 years, I had said that it's a standard or a strict principal and interest schedule, I could refund it. Meaning that, let's just say I have a high interest rate for one of these and the interest rate were lower, we would calculate what the cost of savings of refunding that year, and we would reissue it at a lower interest rate for a savings for the city. Now, we had a 2008 issue that fell off. When we went to look at it in 2018, 19, 20, it wasn't worth us to refund it. It wasn't worth the cost. So, but we'll look at 2016 issuance in 2025, and we can only hope that it's less than 2%. That's not going to happen, but we'll stay on top of it, and if there is an opportunity for some savings, we will refund these.
Other questions?
Yeah, does short-term debt get calculated into this table, or are you kind of projecting
it doesn't
what
yet.
it
I have
will
not
be?
issued it yet.
Okay.
I gave you estimates of what I thought the added cost would be when we do issue it.
Okay.
I can update you when I get the amortization schedules, so that I will update this schedule so you can see.
Okay, great.
Okay. The thing of it is with short term is it's flexible, and we only know the interest rate for 1 year, and you could pay different amounts of principal too.
Right, it might be useful for, not necessarily planning, but thinking about what we could do 1 or 2 years out is what I'm hearing, but I
Absolutely.
wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, in 10 years, we'll be
Right.
able to do this, because it's not as
Right,
useful.
just as long as we know that's an estimated column.
Right, yes, okay, great, thank you.
And then I could even put in anything that we haven't even issued yet or don't plan to issue till the future, just so you can see that. It's a good planning tool.
Great. I think that'll be useful to revisit when we talk about budgets. Lee, as well, you're probably already thinking about this in terms of what we do and don't want to do as a council, knowing the kind of how much as much as we do know about our obligations. So.
Yep. Yeah, in terms of debt service, it looks like our general fund debt service is about 12% of our budget.
That's a good question. It actually, for 2024, is 9%.
9.
But once we put it back to 2.9
Oh, yeah, sorry.
million,
Yeah.
it will be 11.4%, which is more in the ballpark of where we were.
Yeah.
We were always in the 11 to 12% range. It's a good range to be in. It shows that you're reinvesting in your community.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was looking at the, add the 900 to the 1.6, that was getting me to the 2.6. So that puts us back in that ballpark. Yeah, good. That's all I got.
Okay. Is there anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
I think, so we're looking to...
We have a hearing tonight.
We do. We have a public hearing tonight, and we have there's more opportunities to discuss this if you'd like, and then we need to adopt the 5-year program by July 31st. So. I didn't even need my computer.
Okay. And just, council, you get the same briefing and material that we look at internally, right? This is the right way to look at it. Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
All right, we got a few more items. I'm just going to move us along. So we're going to bring up again our minimum parking requirements that we've been working on. Nick, you want to give us an update?
Thank you, Mayor. So, yes, since the council last workshop of local law, my office has sort of workshopped it internally, had comments from the planner, and then we did a page turn in our office, if you will, just to make sure that the local law worked and coincided with other sections of the code. So we've modified the law, have not made any substantive changes, just made some internal reference corrections. We made the changes the council had discussed, for example, requiring that any parking obligations that are going to rely upon properties of others be memorialized by a recorded easement or deed restriction, that there be language in there requiring that landscape that is required as part of any parking be maintained for continuously, even assuming when it's, should it die or be damaged, and other changes of that like. So we're going to work with Ben and have that sent to the county this week so we can get comments back prior to your public hearing on the 15th, which is the date we'd recommend that it next be extended. We'll provide you with a copy highlighting the changes that we've made so you can see that as well, and if you need to, we can workshop it on July 1st. And that's the substantive part of the law. The other item that we had discussed was a parking in lieu of and sort of how that might work. And so that's an interesting topic, and took a little longer to get back to you because we are removing the minimum parking requirements in 3 districts. So therefore, you can't have, unfortunately, a fee in lieu of because there is no minimum requirement. And the law doesn't allow there to be a requirement unless there's some obligation that is being waived. New York refers to those as extractions when you're asking for something where there's no reasonable basis. Since you're not required to comply with the parking, then you wouldn't be able to require with a fee. So that's in 3 districts. In the other districts, you could have a fee in lieu of. We looked at whether there were some other mechanisms. The planner had given us some suggestions. We just didn't find that there was any authority in the law to provide for those fees in lieu of if you had the minimum parking requirements.
So you could do it based on bedrooms, for example? That's also seen as an extraction?
Well, if you did, correct, unless you had a requirement that you must provide X number of spaces per bedroom. If you did that, that would be fine, but we're saying that the planning board has the discretion to set it, and that could be minimum, or it could be 0, or it could be up to a maximum. So if there's no numerical limitation, then there is theoretically no fee to be imposed.
So you couldn't feed into a parking fund.
Correct.
If there's no parking element required of the developer.
That's correct.
Or owner.
That's not the only way we could go about this, though.
Correct. I mean, there are ways to look at it in other ways, whether it's funded through the general taxes, whether we had discussed at one point setting up a parking district, but that, I think, it requires a lot of work and not something that had been advanced before. There's also parking permit fees, and there's also a recognition that this can also be funded through your general taxes.
Okay. Any comments on that? I'll start with a couple. So that's interesting. You know, if I do the trade-off in my head of what am I more concerned about, I think, frankly, the parking minimums or eliminating them is the more ecological and appropriate thing to do. I think we can find other ways if we need to. So I would lean in the direction of let's just move forward and we'll deal with this when we get to it. The only other thing I would add is the areas of concern where we would be eliminating the parking requirement, which is fundamentally the central Main Street district and areas of higher density, that those areas all pay the higher non-homestead tax rate. Remember, we have 2 tax rates in Beacon, and either commercial properties or apartments with more than 3 units pay approximately 50% higher tax rate on exactly the same value. And so I feel like they ought to be getting some value for that, and maybe this is part of that. So those are my 2 comments.
I'm a little hesitant to say no minimum if we're not going to be able to do some kind of parking in lieu. I mean, is this a way that we could work towards more affordable housing? That could be the benefit, that there is no minimum if they do certain things. I just feel when I hear the last thing you said, you know, it comes out of your general taxes, I'm sure not a lot of people in the community or paying taxes are going to be happy that their taxes are paying for the parking that we build because we've said no minimum. I understand ecologically it's better, but I'm having a hard time with that right now.
Other thoughts?
So the last meeting we had, I recall when we were looking at the parking minimums and the maximums as they were laid out in that chart, there was an open question as to whether those minimums were guidance for the planning board or whether they were minimums that needed to be adhered to by the planning board. And I believe that is still a question before the council. When we discuss this next meeting, that would be one of the points of conversation, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that'll determine where all of this other stuff goes, right?
Correct. Great, so we'll get you the draft local law, we'll get you comments from the county, and then we'd suggest that the public hearing be adjourned to July 15th. And that leaves you an opportunity to workshop it on July 1st.
Okay. We okay to move on, as this is just an interim report and we've got more to go? Okay, and then Nick, you're also going to talk us through fire hydrants and a water tank secret determination.
Thank you, Mayor. So you previously workshopped the fire hydrant local law. You have it scheduled for a public hearing tonight. And so this is a local law regarding fire hydrants and regulating and adding new regulations. And we reviewed these with the council at the last meeting. And we've made some changes. So I'm just going to highlight some of those changes. In section 219-24A, which is on page 1 of the local law, in subsection 2, we added that a permit can also be issued so that it can be used to gather engineering data such as, but not limited to, flow data and line pressures. And that was a comment from John Russo, consulting engineer, who says that the planning board will often require applicants to, if they can, before they come to the planning board with a land use project, to determine that there's appropriate flow. Because if there isn't, then there will need to be upgrades. So at the applicant's expense. So the permit would be issued for that purpose, to collect engineering data. On page 2, sub 5 at the top, there's a comment that the expiration date of the permits, that was modified to say that all permits issued will expire no later than November 15th, because we don't want the pipes open when the water is getting colder during the winter. Or within 180 calendar days, whichever occurs first. That was just to make it consistent with best practices. On page 3, under B3, which sets forth that the owners of private hydrants have an obligation to keep it free and clear of obstruction, council had appropriately asked that the word snow be added, so we added the word snow, in addition to making sure that landscaping and other obstructions don't get in the way of a fire hydrant. Page 5, we added a new subparagraph E. As you know, the city does annual flushing of its hydrants. We've also added language in here that the private fire hydrants also need to do annual flushing, which states that all privately owned fire hydrants will be flushed annually and performed in a manner to avoid soil erosion and direct the water flow into storm drainage systems. Permits shall be obtained from the city prior to the flushing, because the city wants to know. So we're requiring a permit. There's not going to be a fee for that permit. And the purpose is to make sure that we then have a record of the flushing occurring. And also requiring that those serviced by the water line connected to the private hydrant be provided at least 48 hours advance written notice of the flushing. And that the owner and operator of the hydrant is responsible for giving the notice. In paragraph G, this is an inspection and registration fee. The dollar amount was set forth in the code as consistent with our practice. We prefer not to put specific dollar amounts in the code, because then when you change in the future, it needs to be a local law. It's easier just to put in the fee schedule, which can be modified by a council resolution. So that was a change in paragraph G. And those are the summary of the changes. And then you have also a fee schedule reflecting what you had discussed at your prior council meeting. And with that, the local law is set for a public hearing for tonight.
Any comments or questions on that? Okay, that seems very consistent with our last discussion. Okay, why don't we go on? And the next one's the seeker determination for the Mount Beacon water tank.
Great. So this is for the replacement of the water tank on Pocket Road, and the action itself is broad enough to cover the construction of the new water tank, the potential demolition of the existing water tank, the granting of a new easement from the State Parks Department, as well as potential easement from adjoining property owner, and all the related construction and infrastructure, including the potential bonding of that, because SECR requires the bonding as well. So this is a review under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. There are three types of actions. Type 1 is one that is automatically deemed to have a potential impact on the environment. Type 2, which is automatically deemed not to have any potential impact, and then unlisted actions. Vast majority are unlisted actions where the local agency needs to determine is there a potential for a significant adverse environmental impact from the project. So you were provided in your packet with a Part 1 environmental assessment form that just provides the basic overview of the project. And then there's what's called a Part 2 in your packet. Part 2 looks at the impact assessment, and we've determined that those are all either small or minor impacts that may occur. Again, you're installing a water tank in roughly the same area where that water tank is, so the impacts would really not be existent. And then we provided what is called an attachment to the negative declaration. That is about a 5-page document that sets forth the reasons supporting the determination and goes through each of the area in a very detailed fashion, talks about impact on the land, and explains why this construction, the bonding, the easements, will not have a significant adverse environmental impact on the land, and likewise for all the other categories. Impacts on surface water and groundwater, not relevant. Impact on flooding, it's explained it will be built in accordance with your regulations. Talks about impact on air, plants and animals, and so forth. All is detailed in that negative declaration. And finally, at the end of that review, that based upon a review of the plans, consideration of the work to be undertaken, that there will be no significant impact to the environment from either the bonding for the potential construction, the construction itself, removal of the existing water tank, and the construction and obtaining of 2 easements for this project. And so tonight, you would be asked to consider the adoption of what is referred to as a negative declaration. If you found that there were potential significant adverse environmental impacts, that would be called a positive declaration that would then require the performance of an environmental impact statement, which is generally not required for projects of this nature.
Can you talk a little about the timber rattlesnake? I know we've had other animals in other projects that it seems like there's a relatively large area that those animals are in. I just didn't know if we've actually ever discovered timber rattlesnake dens, I believe they're called, within a couple miles or within that Mount Beacon area, or if it's more because it kind of the New York State is tracking those, that's why they required that we check and insure it.
It's required. My understanding is that they require and check, and that they're not known to be in this area, and that when they do the actual construction, they'll look for the dens again to see if they're there, because as you're right, it's regulated by New York State, but it's not a significant one that would rise to a significant environmental impact. It's a matter of identifying if the dens are there, and then if they are, then relocating the snakes.
Okay.
Other questions?
And that's only in the area of the water tank?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And so I noticed the water tank's elevation looks like it's increasing about 10 feet. Maybe this is a question for you, Chris?
No, that's my recollection from conversation with John Russo.
Is that enough to, I think part of this is to increase the pressure. Is 10 feet enough to increase the water pressure? I don't know much about that.
Yeah, I think the existing tank is nearing the end of its useful life.
Yeah.
So it was less about the pressure. Another 10 feet does give a lot of pressure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed too there was language about potentially keeping the old water tank, at least for a period of time. Is that simply to cover our bases, not knowing what the future will hold? Or do we know now there's a likelihood we would want to keep the old tank for some period of time as a backup?
Well, we would keep it online while the construction in the new tank is going on. I think we anticipate that we would demolish the old tank. But we never know, like, again, as we develop the project, we may run into things that say, well, let's keep that online just in case. For instance, if we go to commission the new tank and there's any issue, it's good to have that as a backup. But we had intended to try to clear the site of the old tank.
Thank you.
And I note I have also covered number 11, which is the easement with the New York State Parks Recreation and Historic Preservation. As part of the secret review and as part of a project, you would be authorizing entering into an easement with the state as described in the materials.
So we need a little piece of land from New York State Parks eased to us to be able to construct this. Similarly, there's one homeowner that we need a small piece of property, and then we've also been negotiating with Central Hudson because there are limitations on the structures that you're allowed to build under their high tension wires, which do go over the site.
Okay. Any other questions on either the negative declaration or the easement? Okay. All right. Thank you, Nick. The last item on the workshop agenda is a funding resolution for the reconstruction of Teller Ave. And Chris, you're going to tell us why we have to adjust this a little.
Yes.
Okay.
So the project that we started this week in rehabilitating Fishkill Avenue and Teller Avenue are actually two separate projects under DOT, and you'll see PINs, which is a project identification number. In the case of Fishkill Avenue, it ends in .30, and Teller Avenue is .80. What we're essentially doing is adding $1,766,648 to the Teller Avenue share from the Fishkill Avenue share. So when we bid these projects, the bids came in for the shares almost the same. Fishkill came in at 3.5 million. Teller Avenue came at 3.49 million. And then we have a construction inspection cost on top of that. So we worked with the New York State DOT to say we'd like to move this 1.76 million from Fishkill over to Teller so that we completely fund Teller. We also, as I noted, had a very good bid. So we have a surplus of $796,000 that we're going to be trying to utilize through the project, not only to cover any cost overruns, but also to do all of the sidewalks from where we left the project off. Currently, we truncated the project at Blackburn, and so we have these additional funds that are being queued up, and we're going to try to build as much sidewalk as possible. In fact, we had some carbon reduction program money from another program, and I received notification today that we can reschedule that as well for sidewalks. So we're hoping to take care of the sidewalks with the surplus and the CRP money. We're doing work that's contained in the capital program for sewer and water upgrades from Blackburn to Prospect, and then we're going to come back and use an associated CHIPS funding, which is called State Touring Routes, to resurface the roadway. So we're hoping, originally we were going to do the whole road to Fishkill and then had to truncate it, but I think we found a way to get through so that by the end of 2025, the entire length of Teller and Fishkill has new sidewalks where they exist now, new roadway, new storm drains, curbs, and some subsurface infrastructure like water and sewer, storm drains. So this is moving between two projects, and they require you to say, we're going to pay the first instance funding on that. Some of you have been in council, have done this a bunch of times.
You got me curious about the details of that. You said it was a carbon reduction program money that we could reallocate for this purpose. Just curious about some more details on that. Like,
so
what was
it's
it?
transportation funding, and last year was the first year it was available, and the city has a seat on the Dutchess County Transportation Council, and when it came up, no one else bid at it. And I put an application in, and we were awarded $270,000 and change. I used some of that on the Main Street bump out project, but I didn't need all of it. So I've asked them to reallocate that. Unlike this project, which is 95% federal and state, the CRP money, or the Carbon Reduction Program money, is 80% federal, 20% local. So there will be some additional share for us, but it essentially is an extra $140,000 that we have to work with.
And sidewalk development is part of what the program's seeking to support?
Yeah, it's one of the only things that we had lined up that we could apply for. It's different, we can't do vehicles with it, I can't do buildings, I can't do heat pumps or solar. But again, Faye will be in to talk about some of the climate energy grants that we're now entitled to, and what our plans are for that.
Okay, anybody, any other questions? All right. So unless I hear anything else, I'm going to adjourn the workshop.
I have one item, Mr. Mayor. Can we, for our next workshop, I'd like to formally request that we have our affordable housing options on our next workshop. We've been asking for it for a little while, and I think we're ready to get to it.
Yeah, I've spoken to our planner, and she's still working on it, but it's about ready, I would say.
Okay.
So I'm expecting it to come at the next meeting.
Okay.
All right?
Yeah, that'd be great to have that, so I'm glad to hear that the planner's working on it as well.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Having said that, then I will adjourn the workshop. Do we need a minute before we start the regular council meeting? Or do you want to start it?
I would appreciate a minute, sorry, council. I'll be quick.
All right. Anyone else, if you want to take a moment, this is the time to do it.